This is going to be the topic that most people push me back on because they don't want to be confined to a specific niche, but being specific on who you target, what business you want to help, what problem you solve, this is going to be the most bang for your buck thing that you do throughout this entire process because the positioning that you put yourself in is going to determine how quickly you grow. I can't emphasize this enough. We had a client who, within the first 2 weeks, they had never grown a business online. They were super confused. But for the first 2 weeks, they just followed what we'd said, and it should have worked. But first 2 weeks, no one even replied. And we were just like, I was weirded out. Like, how is this happening? So we had a chat, and the only thing we shifted, we didn't change how they were messaging, nothing. The only thing that we shifted was how specific they were on who they target. So on their headline on LinkedIn, they just became more specific on who they target. On the third week, he closed $22,500 within that third week. And right now he's making $70,000 to $80,000 per week consistently. And it's just growing exponentially right now. And the only thing that he's shifted is he's gotten better and better at his positioning, at who he's targeting, what problem he's solving. That's it. The approach does not change. But this is going to be the most important part that you need to get right first. And I want to give another example to drive this point home. Let's say you say, I am a fitness expert and I can help absolutely everyone. No one's going to believe you. But if you just change the positioning, okay, I help busy executive moms lose weight so that they can feel like they're in their 20s. Now, how specific is that statement? That person must have the answer because if they're that specific, they must be great. Now, here's the thing. You don't always have to be very specific on who you target. What happens is eventually as you grow your business, you get more and more access to grow your niche. For example, Tony Robbins is probably the biggest coach on the planet. When he started off, he was specifically helping people with their phobias. Then, once he became a bit more famous, once his influence grew, then he became the business coach. Now he's the kind of life coach for absolutely everything. But when he started, he was solving a very specific problem, a very specific pain point. And then as he grew his niche as well. You can expand slowly, but if you're getting started, especially online, be hyper specific. It doesn't matter how long your business has been alive. If you're online and you don't have the credibility, it's better to be specific. Now, there's a few things that you need to create that will clearly articulate your positioning and who you target. So first of all, we're going to create this statement, and you need to create this statement with me. You need to fill in the blanks. I help X with Y problem. A niche is basically the intersection of two things: who you help and what problem you solve. If you're just talking about you help consultants, for example, that is not a niche. If you just talk about I help people get clients, that is not a niche. I help consultants get clients, that is a niche. So it's this intersection that you want to get good at. Now, once you've created this statement, you can add one more thing to make this sentence even better, which is without Z. Without what constraint? So for example, for us, I help consultants get clients without sounding salesy. Now that's a complete statement. This is not the most important part. You need to get good at this really quickly. But there's one mistake that most people make when they're focusing on their niche. They just think horizontally. What I mean by this is they will think, okay, who do I want to help? Do I want to help the managers or do I want to help the business owners? Who do I help? But that's not all that you need to think about. What you need to think about is the vertical as well. Now, what I mean by the vertical is that in every niche, there's 4 categories that you can target. So the first one being the people who are drowning. The drowning category is for the people who they don't have any money, they're really struggling, they're basically probably not going to be in business for long if things keep on going like this. The next category after that is the people who are floating. These people are getting by. They're not drowning, but they're not so well prepared, and their business isn't doing that well that they can hire more people. They're kind of in a good place. They're in a good comfort zone, but they really want to get to the next level quickly, which is that they're rowing. At this point, they're just rowing their boat. They're rowing their boat because things are looking good, the water looks clear, the path ahead is simple. They're probably adding a few more people every month. They're not worried about their bills, they're not worried about payroll. They're in a good position. And the last stage is the people who are basically on a jet. When you're on a jet, that is where business is taking off, you're growing exponentially, everything is working beyond well, you're at the top of the food chain. But if you were to categorize this, basically it's two categories: the people who are not doing great and the people who are doing awesome. So, out of your niche, for example, if you're targeting gyms, for example, there's going to be gyms that are drowning, there's going to be gyms that are floating, there's going to be gyms that are rowing, and then there's going to be some gyms that are on the jet stage where they're just growing exponentially. So which stage of the game, which stage of the business, which stage of the niche do you want to target? Do you want to target the people who are not doing that great, or do you want to target the people who are doing awesome? So you have to think from your perspective, which category of people do you want to help, and then tailor make your solution for that. Now, the reason why it's important to know which stage you're targeting is because what you're going to do is when you're offering your solution, whatever you have to offer, you're basically going to be offering a transformation that if they're drowning, you're going to help them go from drowning to floating. If they're floating, floating to rowing, rowing to becoming a jet. So you're always going to sell the next stage to whoever you decide to help. And that's what you need to get clear on is A, what is your niche? I help these kind of people with this kind of problem without this restraint. And then think about at what stage are these people at? Because that is going to be the transformation that you're going to offer them. One thing I would suggest is that this is the hardest and most important part of the whole process, because once you have this clear and it's really well defined, everything after this becomes super simple and easy to follow. Everything after this you can do by yourself. You can follow the templates, you can follow the scripts, you can do everything yourself. This part is where I would suggest booking a time with me so I can actually help you. Because if you go down the wrong direction, it's just going to cost you a lot of time, money, and effort. And you might as well just start in the right direction, because it's not worth doing all of this trial and error by yourself. And I've helped enough businesses to know what is the right place that you want to focus on. So before we wrap up, one more thing that I would cover is, let's say you have multiple niches that you could possibly target. You want to just make a little table like this of, let's say this is option 1, option 2, option 3. Now, out of this, out of these 3 options, how much do you love this niche? Do they have the money? And can you actually help them? For example, there might be 1 out of 3 niches that you absolutely love working with. They're really fun to work with, they're cool people, your heart goes out to them because maybe in the past you were them, but they don't have the money. And sadly, maybe you might not be the best person to get them results. Or for the other niche, there might be people that you don't like working with, but they have the money and you can maybe get them results. So now you're getting closer. What you want to do is you want to get to a point where there's all 3 ticks. You love working with them, they have the money, and you can get them great results. This is the winner. So this is how you decide if you have multiple niches to decide between. So take the time to try to figure this out by yourself. If you want help, just use the link below, book a time with me. And this is going to be the most important thing, so spend a lot of time figuring this out.